really appreciate it. We're joined by Kevin Guthrie, our Florida Division of Emergency Management Director, which people of Southwest Florida are familiar with, unfortunately. Every time I are with people that are involved in disaster, I say, thanks for what you're doing. I hope I don't see you next summer, so we'll see. Well, we are in hurricane season, and that's part of the reason we're here today. We have our great Senate President, Kathleen Passidomo, from just south of here in Collier County. Ruben Rodriguez is the district manager for the Home Depot. And then we have Representatives Jenna Persons-Malika from Florida's 78th House District. So June 1st kicks off hurricane season for the Atlantic region. And of course, we are in that. People can say there's going to be a lot, not a lot. People always have their predictions. Look, we prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So it doesn't matter what the forecast is. A lot of them aren't right. If people said that we're not going to have one, we would not just not do our job. We would be ready to go. So we are going to be prepared. We have put a lot of emphasis in this state on recovery, response. I know when Ian came, millions and millions of people restored on power across the state within a matter of 48 hours. It was the fastest restoration that you've ever had in a major hurricane in American history. Of course, we worked hard to get supplies, bridges working, all that, and that's just something that we take pride in, and so we'll be ready to do that. And there are certain things that your local government will need to prepare for and execute. And then, of course, the state, we have a role and we try to lead. We don't typically depend on the federal government for anything because we figure that's not a place you want to be. So we do that and really lean in forward on it. But as individual Floridians, you have a role to play in making sure that you're prepared. And so we are here today to remind folks of the need to have a hurricane preparedness plan. Make sure that you understand the needs of children, seniors, and your household pets in particular. You have to make sure that you have, now, Kevin is going to talk about the disaster supply kit that we recommend. And, you know, this has changed over the years. At first they said maybe have a couple days. You know, now we recommend having 7 days worth of food and supplies for your family. And yes, you didn't need 7 days in 98% of the parts in Florida, but we got stuff out much quicker than has ever been gotten out. I mean, when you had those people coming to get the water and the stuff in the lines, usually, I mean, Kevin can correct me, but I don't think that's usually done between 3 or 4 days after a storm. It's usually after that. We were much quicker on that, and that's great. But you never know what logistical hurdles are going to happen. You never know what infrastructure damage can happen. So having that 7 days is really important. Your kit should include, of course, a lot of water. It should include canned food and other non-perishable, batteries, flashlights, reusable ice, pet items, toys, portable power banks, and other things. Now, we're not just saying do this. We're actually helping people make this happen. We are now in the midst, and this goes until June 14th, of our disaster tax preparedness holiday for sales tax. So all the items I just mentioned are tax-free. In addition, other items that are tax-free are portable generators, tarps and other ways to protect against water, smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, carbon monoxide detectors, portable radios less than $50, and much more. And since I've been governor, we've added to the disaster preparedness tax holiday eligible pet evacuation supplies. So wet cat food, wet dog food, cat litter pans, water bowls, pet waste disposal bags, collars, muzzles, leashes, cat litter weighing 25 pounds or less, pet beds, bags of dry dog food and cat food weighing 50 pounds or less, pet carriers, portable kennels, and over-the-counter pet medication. So right now in our disaster preparedness, all of those items are tax-free at retail stores. So take advantage of that and make sure you're doing what you can to do. Now, we've done a lot with working with like the Hotel and Lodging Association so that when you have disasters, hotels that are taking in evacuees, almost all of them now are pet friendly, because we had situations of people having to choose, are they going to leave a pet at home and then evacuate because they didn't think they could take the pet? Well, no, you can take the pet and bring them. All counties now have at least one pet-friendly shelter. And a lot of times, if it does come to the point where you evacuate, you do not need to evacuate regardless of where you live in Florida. It's certain zones, and then once you evacuate from there, it's usually just going to a different part of your own county. You don't need to go to Georgia. You don't need to go to other states. You don't need to drive to Miami or Jacksonville. You have an ability to shelter internally, and you're basically just getting to higher ground. Any place you would go for a hotel or a shelter is going to be able to withstand the winds. It's really just getting away from the water, which can represent a significant threat to life and limb. So short evacuations is something that we've talked about, but you have the ability to do this with your pets, so please take advantage of that. Now, generators are an important item. No one wants to be without power at all, especially because we have so much of our lives is hooked up to all these electronic devices, for better or worse. That's just what's happened. People get generators, and that's fine, but it's really important that you know how to use generators. I don't think we had any generator fatalities recently. We've really stressed this. They've had them in years past, but you got to keep the generator 20 feet away from any doors and windows. Sometimes people are running the generator inside. That's going to put carbon monoxide in your home, and you will die from that. You got to wait 20 minutes after the generator turns off before refueling. And this is tax-free. You can spend $20 to get a carbon monoxide detector. So if you're using a generator, that will let you know if it's not being operated properly and some of that carbon monoxide is getting into your home. So, you know, as much as you want to make sure you can keep power going, this can be risky if you don't do it right. So make sure that you do it right. And on most of these storms, once we get a bearing on it, we can probably tell you that you're going to lose power. I mean, when you have a major hurricane hitting an area, you are going to lose power. We try to mitigate that, and we work with the utility companies, and we've done a great job of staging. I mean, for Hurricane Ian, we had, what, 50,000? 40,000 linemen staged from out of state ready to go, and as soon as it passed, they were going and doing things. And then when we had the co-op was not as quick as some of the others, we sent FPL and Duke and all them to help get that in Cape Coral and others, and we're happy to do that. But you can usually rest assured that if you're in the eye of one of these things, there's going to be some interruption to power. So just keep that in mind. So if you miss anything during this sales tax holiday period, don't worry. There will be a second disaster preparedness sales tax holiday around the peak of hurricane season from August 24th to September 6th, so residents can replenish their supplies. You know, the way this works, if you look historically at hurricanes, hurricane season starts in June 1st. You can have a hurricane in June. I'm not going to tell you can't, but if you look, I mean, the overwhelming majority come pretty much mid-August to mid-October. That's the high season. If you look at how they're plotted with frequency, you know, that really is. So if you wait till August 24th, just know you are in kind of that red zone where the hurricanes are more frequent. So it's best to get what you need now, and then if you need to replenish during those 2 weeks, you have an ability to be able to do that. But you will get another bite at the apple with the disaster supplies. And heck, if you're like me and Mason here, we've got dogs at home, you know, just buy more dog food. You're going to need it anyways, right? I mean, it's amazing how fast they go through all this. So for a full list of tax-free items, go to floridarevenue.com/disaster-prep. And to see the recommended disaster supply kit checklist, go to floridadisaster.org/kit. And so since we may see more tropical activity in the coming months, I'm also encouraging residents to have multiple ways to receive weather alerts and listen to the instructions from your local officials who, they're the ones that are really charged with making the decisions about how people move around the counties or out of the counties. When bridges are open or closed, that's almost always done at the local level. So please heed what is happening in that regard. Hurricane response is really a bottom-up thing. Certainly you don't want Washington dictating it, but it really starts at the local level. Now, Florida, as we get into this season, hopefully we don't have to have anything. I mean, you never know, right? But hopefully we don't. But we are prepared, and if something does strike and you have a period where you don't have access to power, maybe some businesses have been damaged, we are going to uphold the rule of law in this state. And anyone that tries to take advantage of a disaster, there's going to be zero tolerance for that in the state of Florida. We're not going to let you loot while other people are suffering. So just understand, don't try it here, but if you do, we're going to throw the book at you when you do. Our newly revamped Florida State Guard is also going to be on standby. They helped during Hurricane Idalia. They weren't up and running for Hurricane Ian. Now we've beefed it up. And so we've got a lot of folks in the State Guard that we can deploy. That's different than the National Guard. It's our own baby. Federal government has nothing to do with the Florida State Guard, and we will use that to be able to help Floridians. Now, Director Guthrie has traveled the state this month, meeting with local officials to prepare for the upcoming season. We've also made, of course, historic investments in hardening infrastructure. We've provided massive amounts of money for grants in the My Safe Florida Home program, so people have been able to fortify their own homes, which is something that's important. And what you notice in these storms, the stuff that's newer construction, it withstands the wind very well. They do a good job with that. People that have made improvements, it does pay off. There's no question about that. So we're proud to have played a role in helping people to do that. So now's the time to do Home Depot. There's a lot of stuff you need. I know there's other places that sell stuff, so please take advantage of it. And it's important that we're doing this announcement. It's important we're reminding people. But every time I come to Southwest Florida, I usually come bearing gifts, and today is no different. And so we are always looking for ways to fortify infrastructure, particularly after a storm happens. Sometimes you can take stock of what an area may need and act accordingly. I have a fund that the legislature replenishes or has been replenishing every year called the Job Growth Grant Fund. We do it for workforce development and for infrastructure projects. So if a county submits or a city submits saying, hey, we want help with this road, I can do that. They say we want help with a welding program, I can do that. And so a lot of people ask for money. Some are meritorious, some are not. We have dispersed almost $25 million of Job Growth Grant Fund money since I've been governor to hurricane-impacted communities. So we did Hurricane Michael after the Panhandle, and the Panhandle after Hurricane Michael, and then we did Ian here in Southwest Florida. So today's announcement is building off that record of success. So I'm proud to be able to announce today that I'm going to be awarding $7.5 million to Lee County to help rebuild and enhance the shrimp dock at San Carlos Maritime Park. This dual-purpose facility will serve as an emergency operations site to launch barges and provide a place for shrimp vessels to dock and transfer product to distribution trucks. So obviously it's an important part of the economy. If it's needed for disaster response, it's going to be able to serve that function as well. So they're going to have a bulkhead for barge operations, port improvements, loading docks, and mooring points. This is really, really a meritorious project, and I'm happy to be able to be here to award it. So I have the check somewhere here. Okay. So if you guys want to come, anyone from Lee County want to accept 7.5 million smackers? Okay. Hey, come over here and help with the check. Will you hold the check up for us? Hold it up over your head. There you go. Okay, you guys come over here. There we go. Good job, buddy. All right. Congratulations. You guys take it. You want to go wait in the back and then I'll take you to Hot Tub? All right, we got some other folks. Kevin Guthrie, come on up.
Thank you, Governor. It's very, very good to be back. I think the governor has called my second home here in Fort Myers, so thank you for having us. I want to thank the governor for his leadership, his sound leadership, and his unwavering support in everything that we have done inside of emergency management. It is unmatched by any other governor in any other state. I'm very, very happy that I get to go out and represent the state of Florida and represent the governor at national and international meetings with other emergency managers, and we talk about what we're doing here in Florida, and they just say, we're never going to be able to do that in Florida. You know, Kevin, just sit down, shut up. We just can't compete. So, again, Governor, please accept my humble gratitude for what you do for us. As he's already mentioned, I've spent the last month traveling to all over the state to meet with our county emergency managers to discuss any unmet needs that may arise and challenges that may come. So we've taken inventory of what those things are. Most of that centers around sheltering, food and water, making sure that we have that. And I'm happy to tell you that we have a stockpile in 3 different warehouses, soon to become 1, thanks to the legislature and the governor. But we have plenty of water.
It has not been signed yet.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I premature spoke on that. Perhaps, yes, sir. Perhaps we will have a single warehouse in the future. But we have plenty of water, plenty of food, plenty of tarps and other commodities and equipment that are on hand, ready to go. While we have these resources ready, we want to remind everyone the importance of your personal preparedness. We cannot be successful inside of your home. You have to take accountability for being successful and being ready inside your home. So to do that, we have 5 simple steps that we want everybody to follow. The first of these steps is to make a plan. The governor's talked about that this morning. You need to make a plan for everyone in your household, to include pets. The second thing that you need to do is build a disaster supply kit that includes at least 7 days worth of supplies. Again, as the governor's already alluded to, we're asking you to be ready for 7. If you live in a more remote area where there are miles of lines that are going to have to be restored after a storm comes through, then you may need to increase that. Again, if you're in an urban core setting, we have never been less than 2 days out with food, water, and supplies. In Hurricane Ian, again, underneath the governor's leadership, we were there in 12 hours. I had people within Lee County government say, I cannot believe you're already here. You know, you don't have to be that fast. And I said, no, we're always going to be that fast. So again, please make sure you have those 7 days of supply for every member of your household, including your pets. As the governor has mentioned, this is the first of 2 disaster sales tax holidays. So now that you have your plan and you're ready to go, you know what you need, start to build your kit. There's a table up here on some of the things that you may want to include in your kit, but again, make sure your kit encompasses everybody in your household with those necessities. The third step is to know your evacuation zone and know your home. Please, Floridians, we have, I believe, 1,200-ish a day individuals moving into this state. Please know that your evacuation zone is not your flood zone. Those are 2 separate and distinctly different things. So please make sure you know your evacuation zones. In Florida, they typically run from A through F. They're a single letter, not a double letter, much like flood zones are like A, E, and VE. So make sure you know your evacuation zone. Make sure you know what year your house was built. Typically, if it was built after 2004, it is rated to the Florida Building Code, and therefore, as the governor's already said, you may not need to evacuate due to wind. You may only need to evacuate because of the evacuation zone that you're in. So know your home and know your zone. Fourth thing we want you to do, this time of year, we want you to start, halfway on your gas tank or your electrically charged vehicle is empty. Go ahead and fill that up. Why are we asking you to do this? There's always a run on gas. As much as we will get up in front of people and say, do not make a run on gas, it's going to happen. But if we keep everybody at halfway full as a new empty, we're going to cut down wait times in half. We're going to cut down on supply. We'll be able to go twice as long as we need to. So please, again, halfway full is now the new empty. Keep your vehicles topped off. The fifth thing that we need to do is, now that you've got your plan, you got your kit, you know your home, you know your zone, you're ready to evacuate, you've got your gas tank halfway full, you only need to go tens of miles, not hundreds of miles. My generation, my mom and dad's plan for us is we were going to go up what's called the Woodpecker Trail from Jacksonville, Florida, all the way up to Atlanta, Georgia. You do not need to do that anymore. You just need to go tens of miles. Get to a safe structure, get away from the coast. We want to save lives, but we also want you to stay, and the governor's firmly committed on this, stay in your community. We want you going to your houses, your churches, your community centers, your doctors. We want to keep you local. We don't want you going hundreds of miles away, so please make sure you do that. Again, all of these things that I've just referenced to are on our floridadisaster.org webpage. You can get for the plan at floridadisaster.org/plan-prepare/kit for the kit. The guide that you may need is /guide. So again, all of that stuff is located on our website, and you can please make sure this time of year you're following the division on Facebook at FDEM, on X and Instagram at FLSERT. So again, Governor, thank you so much for your support and everything that you do with the division, and thank you so much for having us.
Good morning. Good morning, Governor. Thank you for once again coming to Southwest Florida. This really is his second home. I'm trying to get him a little more south to Naples. I'm not sure if I can do that yet. Couple of things. Director Guthrie took my words, because the preparedness, we all know what we need to do. We lived through it last year or 2 years ago. The governor was here pretty much every day after Ian. So I think we know what we need to do. We just have to do it. Let's just not put it off. As I was sitting here, I'm thinking to myself, what do I need to do to get to prepare for my house? I haven't done it yet. I better start. Sales tax holiday is the perfect time for us to do that. Hopefully Home Depot will be packed with residents on Saturday buying the things that they need. I do want to say something about the governor and the help that he has provided, because I never want to miss the opportunity, because we all lived through Ian, and the people in the Panhandle have lived through Idalia, and we know what the governor and Director Guthrie and really all of the emergency management personnel from the state of Florida have done for us as citizens. And I'm confident that if we have another event, that the governor will be here. Since you did bring up the budget, probably let me put in a little plug for Southwest Florida. We actually have some really important items in the budget that are related to repair after the hurricane. So the sooner you sign it, the better for us. You brought it up, I didn't. But I'll just close with, I'm really glad to be here at Home Depot. That's kind of my store. I spend a lot of time there. I buy all my orchids there. Please keep the orchids going. But it's really the people who work at Home Depot and the people who work at Lowe's and the people who work at Ace Hardware who are so careful and considerate. And when we are looking, most of us don't know what we need, but the people who work in these stores do, and they are so helpful and so wonderful. And I want to just do a shout out to the people who work here at Home Depot, because without you guys, I'd be buying all the wrong things that wouldn't work. And so keep it up. And again, thank you, Governor, for coming.
Good morning. Thank you, Governor, for being here. My name is Ruben Rodriguez. I'm a district manager with the Home Depot. I've been with this company for 24 years, and I've lived in Florida for 35 years. During this time, I've seen a lot of hurricanes and storms that have come through. I've also seen the help of Home Depot serve our communities and each other in every single time, and all the associates that do a great job doing that. Floridians, it is never too early to prepare for hurricane. We've heard it a few times up here. We don't know when they're coming. Yes, there's a bell of them, but it's never too early to prepare, and we're here to help you in everything that you need. We encourage families to assemble emergency preparedness kit with essential supplies to put the best position possible in advance of a storm, made up of batteries, flashlights, a first aid kit, and bottled water. My family has one and is ready. In the past, we've used our generators, tarps, more than once, and luckily we had them. And the times that we didn't need to use them, we're still lucky that we had them prepared. It is very important to take advantage of a Florida tax-free holiday. Basics that you'll always want to have in case of an emergency, include an assortment of batteries, flashlights, and lanterns for every member of the family. Other bases include a first aid kit, duct tape, weather radio, and bottled water. Additionally, if our communities need to recover from a storm, we have a plan that too. Our Home Depot Foundation has pre-fortified our various nonprofit partners with recovery supplies so they can quickly assist Floridians after a storm. With more than 150 stores in Florida, we're ready to serve our customers and neighbors before and after disaster strikes. And of course, we are happy to add extra help here during our Florida tax-free holiday. I want to thank you again, Governor, Senate President Pasolino, and Representative Person Malika. Thank you for being here and joining us, and I'll swing it back to you. Okay. Thank you, sir.
So I think the post-Ian stuff looks good in the budget. I mean, I haven't, we're going to bring it in for a landing very soon. So we're going through all of it. And it's, you know, you could be in a state that was hemorrhaging money, unfunded liabilities, massive problems, massive tax burden. And yet in Florida, we're the lowest, second lowest per capita tax burden in the country on a state-by-state basis. We have now the lowest per capita debt, state debt in the entire country of all 50 states. You know, we've paid down almost, I think we're going to be, after this budget, we're probably going to have paid down close to 30% of the state's total debt. From the inception of the state of Florida till the present, everything that had been racked up, we're chopped off 30% of that very soon, and the legislature basically has funded one of my requests, which is let's accelerate this debt repayment. And if it doesn't make sense to do it, we won't, because sometimes you pay more when you do it. But if we can do it at a discount and retire it, it makes perfect sense to do it. So we're doing all of that, and the budget is going to be basically static in terms of the overall level of spending. I mean, you know, there aren't very many places that actually have any restraint on this, and we've had a lot of inflation. I mean, I've had to put in more money for Kevin's projects because of how much more it costs with all the inflation. I put more in for roads because the cost has gone up so much. But even with all of that, even with doing record education funding, even with doing record environmental funding, we're going to have the reservoir done here very soon. That's going to help the Caloosahatchee. We've done a lot in beach renourishment. We have a massive infrastructure program moving Florida forward. In spite of all of that, we still have a budget that is half of New York's budget, which New York has millions fewer people than us now, and yet our budget is half. We have the lowest number of government workers per capita in the entire United States of America. So it's going to come in for a landing in ways that are very, very good. We're using the limited amount of tax money we take in, and honestly, a lot of the tax money in Florida is paid by non-Floridians because they come in and they stay, they pay sales tax, people that have vacation homes pay, all this stuff, and so the Floridians' burden is lower because we have the luxury of having that. But you know, you should feel good about where we're at, and not only no income tax, we're never going to have an income tax, but there would never even be a need to when you're fiscally responsible. You know, these liberal states, they do dumb things, they hemorrhage money, and then they double down on the dumb policies and raise taxes even more, and that just causes more individuals and businesses to leave, and it's a vicious cycle over and over again. So happily for our state, that is not a cycle that we're interested in indulging in, and we're going to keep a virtuous cycle of surplus, paying down debt, tax relief, meeting the obligations that we need to. And so I think it's going to end up being something that has been very good, and I think people will be very pleased with the final result of what we do. I'm also just like to congratulate, you know, we've got both Florida State and University of Florida are playing in the NCAA Baseball Super Regionals this weekend, and there's a trip to Omaha for the College World Series on the line for both of them. So we want to wish both of them a lot of luck. I got a little one here who's a big fan, and if one or both make it, you may see Mason and me in Omaha cheering on one of the Florida teams. So we're happy to be here. Happy to take a couple questions. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Governor. How are you?
Good.
Moving forward, following Donald Trump's conviction, what is your role in the Trump campaign going to look like? Do you plan to travel with him? Do you plan to help him raise any money?
So I think it's been reported we've been active in raising money. I think it's important, and we're going to continue to do that. I don't think that in this state there's going to be much of a campaign because we're now a solid Republican state. We weren't when I became governor, but now we are. And so I don't think that that the statewide races are competitive at all. I think that that's just the reality of the situation, and that's good. We're proud of what we've done. When I became governor, I think there were 300,000 more registered Democrats than Republicans in Florida, and we had never in the history of Florida ever had more registered Republicans than Democrats. Today, 5.5 years later, we have 930,000 more registered Republicans than Democrats. Nobody can match that. And so that's just the reality that we see in terms of politics. I think people were just so used to Florida being such a close state because it was for many decades. 2022 kind of blew that out of the water, and so now we're in a different spot politically. But I do think just given our level of support we've been able to enjoy, we've got an ability to help in that regard. Now, I will say this, this election, not in Florida, I think has been beneficial for Republicans, but you have had more internal migration in this country from 2020 to 2024 than in most four-year stretches in our history, and maybe more than any stretch. And so how many Republicans, we have all these new people, how many of them came from Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, some of these key states? And I don't know the answer to that, but I think that you're likely to see some of the states maybe behave a little bit different than 4 years ago, because I think the electorates have changed pretty significantly, respectively, for a 4-year period. It's usually very stable, but I just think that, and you had Fauci up there with that circus yesterday, but I mean, his policies really became ingrained in some of these blue states, and it just destroyed the quality of life there, so people fled. They ran to Florida, they ran to Tennessee, Texas, all these other places, and that's been something that's been really significant. It's not just a little blip. It's not just a little on the edges. I mean, I do think you've seen serious change. So stay tuned on how that is going to shake out. But it's interesting because I can tell you this state will behave differently in 24 compared to it did in 2016 and 2020 because the state's more Republican now. Yep.
Election supervisors are concerned with this new rule when it comes to determining voter intent on a ballot. Can you talk about the changes and why you feel
What are they concerned specifically about?
So they're worried about inconsistencies in the new rule. So could you explain the new rule just so there's clarity?
Well, I had not. This is the first I've heard that people have raised an issue. I mean, I didn't hear in the legislature. I mean, it was a pretty. I mean, Kathleen, do you want to say anything about that? Well, if you want to, I mean, you guys wrote it. Okay. I think it's going to be fine. I really do. I mean, I think that the fact of the matter is elections are decentralized. They're done on a county-by-county basis. The state oversees, and we have a supervisory role. Of course, we enact policy that the legislature passes and the governor can sign, but ultimately that's got to be implemented on a local level. And like, for example, we've seen in the past, Broward County, for example, they run elections differently than you'd run them in Lee or in Sarasota or in Okaloosa. We've, I think, corrected that to a large degree, partially because we now have in Florida an agency in the state level, not the local level, that's sole responsibility is to investigate and prosecute election crimes. So you've now seen over the last few years, you've seen illegal aliens prosecuted in Florida for voting. And honestly, like some of these, now, I mean, they need to be held accountable, but some of them were in Broward, and the people in Broward were telling them that they had a right to vote, even if they're a foreigner. No, that is not the law. That's never been the law in Florida. But now we have an ability to hold people accountable. So it's had a huge impact on that, because I think there were pockets of the state where you can kind of do what you wanted and no one would be held accountable. That's changed now. We have a new sheriff in town, and we have run for 2 consecutive cycles, 2020 and 2022, the most efficient and transparent elections anywhere in the country. And just think, if we were sitting here 24 years ago saying that, people would have laughed that Florida elections would actually be run efficiency. So I think the 24 is going to be even better than we've done the last 2 years, and I think the changes that have been made have been positive across the board.
Hurricane Ian, what are your views on how recovery has been in Southwest Florida?
Well, look, these are tough things. I think when it happened, I said, we're here, but we know that 2 weeks from now we'll be here. We know 4 weeks from now there probably won't be very many national TV cameras here anymore, but the recovery is only just beginning. And this is something, and in some instances, takes years. You know, it's interesting. I remember after that, the storm hits, you had CNN, all these people, they came down to Southwest Florida, and they were just trying to create conflict. They were not trying to accurately report. Well, they start asking, and they're trying, and people are like, no, you know, we appreciate the quick response, you know, and people weren't complaining, and so they just left after a couple days. I mean, 72 hours after the storm, you couldn't find a CNN camera if you had a search warrant in the state of Florida. They were gone. It was just not, because there wasn't the narrative, and that's what they were trying to do. So it's interesting. So people kind of outside of this community, it didn't get a lot of play, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month into it, but the work continues. And so I think the fact that I'm here today, almost 2 years after the fact, awarding $7.5 million, shows that in Florida, we understand at the state level that some of these things are long range in nature. Yes, we were happy to fix Pine Island Bridge. We're happy to get Sanibel Causeway back. We're happy to do some of those things, and they're important, and you need to do them. But there are also certain things that just take a little longer. Now, I know there's different things like in the private sector, all that stuff that people have got to work through that the state really isn't involved with. But I will say this, all the best, all the worst aspects, if this type of storm had hit other parts of this country, you would not be having people moving in here, investing, I mean, in those places. I mean, they would have been knocked on their back, and a lot of them probably never would have recovered. And so in Southwest Florida, the question is not whether there's going to be a recovery. The question is really, and it's not even whether that's going to come back stronger. That's, I think, for sure. Just how much stronger is it going to be? So that will happen. So these are difficult things. We continue with Kevin. I mean, we've done a lot of stuff just in the last year compared to, you know, the first 6 months, for say, when it's more fresh in people's mind. But I think all in all, if you look at how this happened, if you're a resident of Southwest Florida and you could have been in another part of the country and have that Cat 5 hit, I think you'd had a lot more problems. There's no question about that.
As you mentioned, you know, recovery in a lot of places here for a lot of people has barely even started. Is there anything that worries you when it comes to us getting hit again? Anything that keeps you up at night when you think about, you know, people still being displaced or not having rebuilt their homes?
Do you want to talk about some of the things?
And I think it's clear I didn't exactly catch all of your question, but you know, piggybacking off what the governor just left from, this area, based on my experience, and you know, I was at Hurricane Michael with the previous governor. We're about 3 years ahead of where they were at in their recovery. So you are almost at the 5-year mark here in Southwest Florida, and that goes back to not only the things that the governor did, but just the individuals that are wanting to take an active part of their recovery and get those things done. When it comes to being, you know, is there something that I think you said, is there something that keeps you up at night and things of that nature? I will tell you, we prepare for every kind of disaster in the state of Florida. We have, I think, somewhere around 15, 16 types of risk and things that could happen in Florida, and we prepare for every one of those things, whether it's a nuclear power plant issue all the way to a Cat 5 hurricane. You know, we prepare for the worst, and you've heard the governor say this time and time again. We prepare for the worst, and we hope for the best. The worst situation for us is going to be an 04-05 season all over again. Are we ready for that? 100% we are ready for that. So that does not keep me up at night. What probably keeps me up more at night than anything else is what we've talked about here today, and that's everybody being ready for their one. I need all residents to be ready for their one. The governor physically cannot go in your house and prep you for what you need to do. You need to be ready. Your local governments, and I speak with Lee County a lot still to this day. I speak with other counties. We just finished up that statewide tour. Counties are ready. Cities are ready. The state government is more than ready and prepared. We need folks to be ready.
Yeah, and I mean, just like from my experience, so if you think about the last, 35 years in Florida, you know, Andrew, Michael, and then Ian were kind of our three biggest. No, I'm not saying the others weren't. I mean, Charlie was big, but I think you guys, Charlie was like this big and Ian was like this big. I mean, big difference. So that hit Homestead in '92, and you would not have wanted that to be the response to Ian. I mean, it was total chaos. There was really no coordination. I mean, I don't even know the state did very little compared. I mean, certainly nothing compared to what we do now. So it was a time of just, I mean, it was really, really bad. So fast forward, that's 1992. I remember being down, because, you know, Homestead they had different things going on, and Andrew just stopped all that in its tracks. And I remember going down when I was playing baseball in college, and they'd bring in other teams from the country. So you're in that little baseball stadium they had in Homestead, and we're just driving around, and the whole place was dead. It just didn't have any vitality, and that's something, I mean, I still think to this day, you could argue they haven't 25, you know, it took 25 years. So you guys are ahead. It's not an easy thing, but I mean, when this happened, obviously the state responded, the locals, I remember the sheriffs and the police and everybody out there. It was really all hands on deck, and you felt good that there was a quick response. But then you think about, okay, you know, well, what does this mean for the future? And like 6 weeks in, you got people down trying to buy lots in Cape Coral, like big money. They want the houses. And I'm just thinking to myself, normally like a hurricane may dissuade people, but I think what happened was people saw how pretty it is here, and they're like, okay, well, we want to be a part of that. So you've had a lot of people that have wanted to invest in this part of the state with private capital. To me, that says a lot, because that says they're bullish on what's going to happen in the future. So I would say that there's, Kevin said, you know, where you guys are at is normally 5 years after a storm, and you're here in less than 2. And it doesn't mean that it's easy. It doesn't mean that there are a lot of challenges, because there are. But I think Andrew's a good example of how difficult this can be, and how a storm of that. And Andrew was higher winds than Ian, but it was smaller than Ian, a lot smaller than Ian. In fact, I mean, you would Andrew buzz parts. If you were like 10 miles north of Andrew when it buzzed, a lot of people didn't feel any effects at all. And Michael was similar too. You know, it was kind of like a tornado path almost. Ian, everyone in Southwest Florida felt something, but then it went up the middle of the state. I mean, Kevin and I were in Osceola County. We're in Orange County in Central Florida a week after the storm. St. Augustine had flooding. Daytona Beach, the beach erosion and that's on the east coast of Florida, massive dislocations. So this was a big, big storm, and probably, all things considered, probably the most, I think it was certainly the most significant of this century for us, no question, given the size. Michael may have been stronger, but it was a much tighter thing. So this is a big deal, and it's not easy to be able to do. So, okay, so you're going to have a state budget done very soon. You guys are going to be happy with, well, not all of her colleagues are going to be happy with everything, but you know, you got to make choices. And when I became governor, and this is not about like trying to set records, but the most that had ever been vetoed out of a budget was $800 million out of a budget. I think my second year as governor, we did $1 million. Then I think we did a little bit more next year. But then I think my third year as governor, fourth year as governor, we vetoed $3.3 billion. That was like 3% of the budget. And not that everything we vetoed, some stuff was inappropriate, but not that everything you veto is bad. I mean, there are some things that are, but I had to make a decision, okay, you can just spend money, or you can have that in reserve and you can pay down debt. So we would not be in the position where we've paid off so much debt had I not been willing to do, you know, the vetoes. Now, we didn't do as many vetoes last year than I did the previous year because I think the legislature did a better job. But there's definitely going to be things, because I want to keep that budget in a very stable spot. You don't want to see big. COVID caused, you know, there was spending that was happening because of COVID. I mean, the DEM were doing all these, and look, I'm happy to do it. I mean, when we had the Delta wave, I set up the antibody clinics. We were the only ones doing that. We set up clinics. We had them in Lee. We had them in all around the country, and that was the division of, all around the state, that was the Division of Emergency Management doing it. You know, I have people to this day will come up and thank me for saving their lives or one of their family members' lives because they had medication. You know, people like Fauci didn't want to talk about medication and treatment. They just wanted to talk about social distancing, wearing a mask, and then doing mRNA shots. But a lot of these people had taken the mRNA and they were still getting infected. So give me a break. You got to treat people. So we did it. But, you know, we had to put up the money for that. We've had to put up money for the hurricane recovery. And I'm happy to do all these things. All of our infrastructure, from environment to roads to beaches, you name it, that has gotten much more expensive over the last 3 years because of the inflation that you've seen in the economy. So we do that, and we're happy to do that. But at the same time, I think we need an era of stability where people know that the budget is going to be solid. We're not going to get over our skis with things that we're not going to be able to do. Right now in Florida, knock on wood, you know, we outperform the country in the economy, most other states. There's a lot of problems with the national economy. If things were to take a turn for the worse, we are protected against that on our budget. I mean, we've got massive amounts of money in reserve. You know, normally things like that happen. You'll have legislators around the country come in and raise taxes or do things that a lot of people don't like. Here, you guys don't have to do anything. We'll just take from surplus and plug in if there's a hole. Like, that's really all we have to do because of the good management. So I think it's important, and I think Kathleen's done a great job in her 2 years. And if you think back, these 2 years with Kathleen as Senate President and Speaker Renner as the Speaker of the Florida House, you have never had a 2-year period, not just in Florida, but in the modern history of the Republican Party, where you've put more points on the board across every issue imaginable than we have over the last 2 years. So you guys should be proud of that. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon. God bless.